They said it was clean, too cheap to meter. Built the dome, then cooked the beaker. Said the rod was safely sealed in drums, but left them leaking out of Idaho slums. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. They chase the sun, all fusion proud. Ignore the barrels stacked in clouds. Promise stars in every socket, while curium settled in the market. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done.
Hello everybody, welcome back.
So don't be scared, the chart is clean. While whales rolled up beside the submarine. Blame the algae, blame the rain, but never trace the gamma chain. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won.
I love that.
Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done.
Exceptionalism. Nuclear
Now the
exceptionalism.
rods are rusting, the record spins. Mama warned them too many.
Might as well let it
sins.
finish
Keep your
out,
son.
eh? It's only another
Keep your
30
lap so
seconds.
bright till you fix the waste you tried to hide. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done.
We gotta make that song a hit. That song deserves to be sung by millions and billions of people. I bet you one day it will be. I have no doubt, actually. You can find it at James Lewis's site on YouTube. Let's get started, hey? Should all nuclear fuel pools that are surrounded by farms be closed to stop the genocide at supermarkets? Did you know all the nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms? So that's the best way to get rid of nuclear, is to close down all nuclear plants surrounded by farms. That should terrify you. I'm not laughing, that's the gallows laugh. Always such a strain trying to pick a picture for the thumbnail every show. It typically takes me 10, 15, 20 minutes to make this friggin' picture for each show. I can just put a blank screen there and it'll still take me 15 or 20 minutes, I bet you. You're hoping that it'll entice people in, but after all these years, you're just trying to tell a story. Yeah. Look at Grossy. Man, has he ever got the most awesome name for a scumbag, eh? Grossy. If you're going to be a scumbag, that's a pretty cool name to have. Might as well embrace it, I suppose. We got a good show for everyone tonight. We got a crazy show. Excuse me. Got a great show for everybody tonight. Brutal censorship again tonight. Holy shit. Last night's show barely got any views. What's that all about? I'm not like I'm not trying to be like a trendy YouTuber. I'm not trying to be whatever. I'm just trying to tell a story about nuclear news and the nuclear industry. And if you believe the censorship, nobody watches this show. That means nobody likes nuclear. So how can there be a nuclear renaissance if nobody watches nuclear news? There is no nuclear renaissance, Dana. I know. I'm just trying to be cheery. Let's get after it. Social agreement needed for disposing of Fukushima soil. What do you need to dispose of? Or why not just store it for 1 million years in a deep geological repository? Should we put all the fuel rods in flower pots now too, that we set a precedence for nuclear waste going in a flower pot? So this is south of the plant. This is towards Tokyo side. So Kuma. Between Okuma and Furubar, which is on the other side of the plant, is 14 million bags. So there's 16 million bags missing. And there's hundreds and hundreds of the tanks are missing too. There's no checks and balances, which is a really interesting story. Like, we got rid of the atomic limit in Canada because it was the promoter and the regulator, and that's just a terrible idea. So we got rid of that and separated it. The Americans done the exact same thing, right? They had the atomic energy limited or something. I can't remember the exact name because I hate them so much that I blacked it out of my mind. And so they were the regulators and they were the promoters. They were supposed to be the checks and balances, but also the promoters. And such a terrible idea, they got rid of that, and then they created separate entities, right? But the International Atomic Energy Agency is the promoter, the lobbying group, the so-called watchdog. You'll hear media over and over refer to them as the UN's watchdog, but yet they're the promoters. So it's a terrible idea. And so with those guys, we should drown them in buckets of vomit or something because they're special. And they should be disposed of in a deep geological repository after. The two main measures are to recycle some of it, to eventually dispose of all the soil outside of the Fukushima prefecture. Well, you got to put it outside the prefecture. How does that mitigate it? What kind of bullshit is this? Well, we put the problem over there instead of here. That's the nuclear industry, because that's all they know how to do is put it over somewhere else, right? Put a rug over it and sweep everything under the rug. It's such a stupid, idiot thing, right? They're not disposing of it. They're just going to move it to a different prefecture. Moving it to a different prefecture is not disposing of it. You know what I'm saying, right? So if somebody fills up a bucket with dog shit and they disposes of it on your front doorstep, did it go away, or is it on your front doorstep? Unfortunately, this is lethal stuff, so I shouldn't even compare it to something like that. What are you going to do with scumbags when everybody's a scumbag in an industry? How do you rationalize with that industry? Like, everybody's a scumbag. I'm being polite, by the way. It's not like I'm exaggerating it. I'm not like I'm taking it out of context. Everybody's a scumbag. It's just... Do you really think James Lucid created 330 songs because half the people are reasonable? No. He's got 330 songs because everybody's a friggin' scumbag. And it's easy to do it, right? There is no wrong song. You can't make a mistake talking shit about the nuclear industry. That's the beauty of this topic. That's why I'm surprised there's not thousands of people doing it, because you can't screw up. You just got to keep calling them scumbags, and you're always right. That's just the way it is. No disrespect to the scumbags. They don't mind. Trust me, they know they're scumbags. It's not like their wives and children and friends and families haven't told them the same thing over and over their whole lives. However, no course for those measures has been laid down because of the difficulties in finding a location to serve as a final disposal site. So wait, now you're talking about disposing of it in another prefecture, so why not have a final disposal site in your own prefecture? You created it. Why should somebody else take your mess? Like the people who thought this up originally got the IQ of a friggin' fly. It's a grave issue that society as a whole must squarely face. Well, why? Society didn't create it, the nuclear industry did. Society, the biggest society's only issue was they trusted the nuclear industry. Why should they be punished? They deserve better. Soil removed, there was 30 million bags, there's 16 million bags missing. Who knows what they got done with that? I just shudder to think of it, what they're actually done with that. They're growing food in that, shipping it worldwide, we know that much. Soil, this is radioactive fallout, by the way, not soil. It stopped being soil when it was, like, if I take a cup of soil and 2 cups of toxic sludge and mix the soil in with the 1 cup of soil with 2 cups of toxic sludge, are you going to call it soil or are you going to call it toxic sludge? So toxic sludge, toxic radioactive fallout removed during the... This is not decontamination work. You can't call digging up 30 million one-ton bags of topsoil decontamination work. You only got a fraction of a percent of the radioactive fallout. And it's recontaminated right away because there's only 3% of the land that you're scratching up the topsoil. So the next day is just as contaminated again. 97% of the land is still contaminated, so the radioactive fallout is not stationary. Within the Fukushima prefecture has been accumulating at a nuclear waste storage facility. It's not an interim storage facility, it's a nuclear waste storage facility for nuclear waste with 14 million one-ton bags of nuclear waste. Near the nuclear meltdown. It's not a nuclear plant anymore. It stopped being a nuclear plant in 2011. Now it's a nuclear catastrophe site. It's a catastrophic. So as not to interfere with the reconstruction efforts in the prefecture. Well, how would putting it in a deep geological repository, and why would you try to, you can't reconstruct a nuclear meltdown contaminated area. You should be down practicing on Chernobyl, not on Fukushima where multiple reactors are still melting down. The Fukushima governor accepted, which is Ichibori, his entire legacy post-Fukushima is being a degenerate, disgusting parasite who accepted the proposal but said it was an agonizing decision. Clearly there's nothing he's ever done was an agonizing decision. This is a remorseless, soulless creature. Ichibori is the furthest thing from a human you'll ever get on this planet. The plan is to use the 3/4 of the total volume, which 16 million one-ton bags are missing, by the way. So excluding them, the 14 million one-ton bags of radioactive fallout, with radiation concentration levels under 8,000 becquerels per kilogram in soil public work. The criteria for the bags was 100,000 atoms per kilogram of cesium-137, which is not going to decay for 300 years. So there's no way that it could be 8,000 atoms a kilogram because the criteria was 100,000 atoms a kilogram. And so they're going to use it in various parts. You just spread it, just put it in the back of, like, you know what you use for, you get a plow truck you use in the wintertime and you have these sanders on the back of it. And so instead of using sand, just use the radioactive fallout and just spread it over the whole country and get it over with. And next time you have a typhoon, it'll all wash it into the Pacific anyway, no matter where you puts it. Politicians make a decision before thorough discussion was conducted. There's an understatement. So one of the issues was the pro-nuclear said, we got to get it out of the prefecture, and all the politicians say, let's vote on it, and they all went, all right. And then it was law, right? But without no common sense, without no input from the academic community, without no dissenting voices, it's an idiot culture. Like, I love the Japanese people, but it's an idiot culture. It's a degenerate culture on top of that. Like, if you actually know quite a bit about Japan, you're like, that's a degenerate culture. There was a sharp difference of opinions regarding the radiation risk from the nuclear plant accident in relations to farm products. These people are insane, eh? Bear with me. This lot is never an easy ride for anybody. You always got to be... When it comes to the nuclear industry, you always got to watch your back. It's just one evil after another. Look, this is 2013. They're growing food, harvesting it, and they're not wearing any protective gear, so it's for sale. Right alongside of 1-ton bags of radioactive fallout in a place where they couldn't live. They would come in and tend the farm once a week. So then they came back and harvested. It's for sale because when you see them without protective gear on, that means it's for sale. I got this out of their media before they stopped allowing people to download the pictures. Hallelujah. That song's stuck in my mind all day today. That's a good thing. I could have a lot of worse things stuck in my mind, trust me. Now is also the time to enter into serious discussions about the final disposal that will come with recycling. You can't recycle nuclear waste. Like 100,000 atoms of cesium-137 per kilogram was what went into the bag, was the minimum criteria. It was very, very difficult to find like 100,000. It was typically 500,000 or 1 million atoms a kilogram in the places where they were scratching up, which is farmers' fields and communities where they wanted to trick and manipulate and deceive good-natured, trusting victims of the country into moving back into. It's okay, Dana. That's their culture. No, it's not okay. Okay? All right. Rare photos of Hiroshima atomic. They put A, and this media always does that. They won't put like nuclear, they'll put an N. They won't put atomic, they'll put an A. A bombing shows grim aftermath. If it's coal, they'll put in coal. If it's gas, they'll put in gas. If it's oil, they'll put in oil. If it's nuclear, they'll put in N. There was 5 pictures. This is a crazy story I'm about to show. It's a short story, but it's an important story. So this is the 80th anniversary. Hiroshima, 1945. Special exhibition, 80 years after atomic bombing. Open at the Photographic Art Museum, May 31st, with many foreign visitors in attendance. Now, they only had 5 pictures, and when you find out the reason why there's only 5 pictures, you appreciate why nuclear industry is disgusting parasites. There are a few photographs left today that showed what Hiroshima looked like immediately after the bombing, the nuclear bombs. Of the pictures taken that day to graphically record the horrendous fate met by Hiroshima's citizens, only 5 film negatives still survive. Because the government and the occupiers burnt everything, all the pictures. These were all works of one person, 5 pictures. That's what they got for the exhibition, folks. Blown off his feet by a nuclear blast and bleeding from shards of broken window panes, he grabbed his camera and headed to the city. This is a story I've heard a few times. they seen a big blast, so they were looking at the window, and then the glass hit them in the face, right? A toddler clung to its mother who could not move. A woman kept shouting her child's name. There was all this pandemonium going on. Faced with hordes of people with burnt skin and hair. Hordes of people. And this is one of the pictures. Hordes of people with burnt face and skin and hair. It's not a very good picture. I blew it up trying to get something out of it, but it's not. The picture they gave us is really bad. You can go ahead and blame me. I don't mind, but it's not my fault. But some people may wonder about the scarcity of the photos that remained. I think everybody wonders about that. Why is there only 5 pictures? Because after World War II, the United States military, incinerated many pictures, if not the majority of them. And the disposal of some was regulated by the General Headquarters for the Supreme Commander for the Allied Powers, GHQ. Wow. The ultimate in cruelty. Not only did they burn them alive, they burnt their memories. A Czech deal to build a nuclear disease factories worth 18 billion by South Korea is unblocked after a court cleared the way. They're not very corrupt. I mean, they're really corrupt in Czech Republic. South Korea's got a new president, and he says he's going to make it right with North Korea. He's going to make things right. This should be an interesting year. I guess they need precious metals from those mountains, do they? A Czech deal to build nuclear reactors. A deal to build at least 2 nuclear reactors for $18 billion. You people are idiots. Go geothermal. You can have twice the power in a tenth of the time. Has been unblocked after an appeals court dismissed a lower court ruling that blocked the government from signing a deal with South Korea's power utility. Hallelujah. Somebody fishing by a nuclear plant. That's the gallows laugh. Do you know how crazy and stupid that actually is? These plants are every nuclear power plant has big pipes for releasing radiation legally. They're legally allowed to release so much from every nuclear power plant. Also has incinerators. They're legally allowed to burn radioactive, what they call low level. And nobody knows what it is because it's the Secrecy Act from the Manhattan Project is still in effect. So they're radioactive fallout constantly from the fuel pools. They're dumping it into the river, and they're burning it in incinerators at every nuclear plant worldwide. Just another day in the nuclear industry. Evil is just a way. I was just checking the comments. James says he never sees Don. Wow. I don't see him either. Oh, there he is. Wait now. If I close one eye, I don't see him. I've heard people say that before, right? About other people. Somebody was saying they didn't see James's comments. Like fishing at a fish farm. A mass of scumbags oozing poison. There you go, Dana. Awesome. Yeah, I wonder why James doesn't see Don Vincent. I wonder. Man. I just wanted to show James that he's there, James. I swear. I'm in one of those fun-making moves tonight. Hi, Ford. Thank you. You're very kind. I'm not honest. I'm just an asshole, man. James is a nice guy. I'm not a nice guy. He's the yin. I'm the terrible yang to the nuclear industry. He writes nice songs. I say terrible stuff all the time. Shocking the stuff I says, isn't it? But I can't really say the stuff I want to say because we're on YouTube. You have no idea how naughty I would actually be if I wasn't on YouTube. The 2 new reactors will be built at the existing Dukovany power plant in an effort for the country to wean itself off fossil fuel. Well, how are you going to wean yourself off fossil fuel? You need a gas, oil, coal, nuclear. For nuclear plants, you need two dedicated gas, oil, and coal plants. And a nuclear plant site can't run on its own power, and it's massive. The reactors are using doing equivalent of 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks of each got a ton of water each minute every 60 seconds. Think about the energy we're talking about just to make something like that happen on its own, right? It's you need 2 dedicated gas, oil, and coal plants. First new reactors expected to become operational for a trial by 2036. The second about 2 years later. I was out on the motorcycle again today, and I like the motorcycle, and the weather's finally broke down. It's not summer officially, but the weather's broke. And I covered about 50 kilometers of coastline. Never seen a single bird. Not one. And we're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We have the biggest migratory route here of seabirds, with 46 million a year comes through here, and have been raising their fledglings here for 1 million generations. And you go out there now, the cliffs have no stain on them whatsoever from the excrement from the generations. So they've been missing about 6 years, 7 years. 46 million birds. There shouldn't be a pothole without a bird into it on this island. It used to be that way, eh? You wouldn't see, like, drainage ditches on the side of the road. They would always have migratory birds in it at this time of the year. The first new reactor is expected to become operational for a trial by 2036. Well, 11 years. And the second about 2 years later. Give you a head shake. $18 billion, you really think is going to come in on that budget? Google and Chevron back $150 million raise for nuclear fusion firm TAE Technologies. Oh, they're pretty happy there. Look at them. Look at all these little scumbags all in a row. It's kind of like I was thinking of, like, it'd be cool if somebody came in with like a 30-foot bowling ball and knocked them all down. That would be pretty cool. Broke a few arms, maybe, something. Something to make the average person smile, right? Now, they got $150 million to advance the commercial fusion reactor. Google and Chevron participated in the round, extending a decade-long R&D partnership. We covered this a lot over the years. The latest prototype achieved 70 million degrees Celsius for a millionth of a second. The fusion works on the sun because the sun could eject the plasma millions of miles into space, right? That's why it doesn't work on Earth, because you can't eject the extra stuff. As far as I can tell, anyway. That's my personal opinion. That's my personal, educated opinion. When you're at this forever, it seems like forever. All of my memories now are tied up in this. Over 2 decades. And you have epiphanies, because if you appreciate how much I actually read every day, the question, there's all kinds of subjects I can really win the subject, hands down, beat the subject. Like, not necessarily, I'm saying it the wrong way, I can articulate the subject. When it comes to nuclear, it takes weeks and weeks and weeks, because there's so many facets, there's so many minutiae, there's so many details. Paving the way for net energy validation. Net energy. This is where you get more energy. You're producing more than your takes. So imagine how much energy it takes to hit 70 million degrees Celsius. And so the 70 million, it's like a starting motor, starting your car. You know how a starting motor works. You got a 12-volt battery, and you turn the key in, and it starts, right? It's very little energy. And these crazy nut jobs, you got to get 70 million degree Fahrenheit temperature, or Celsius. This is absurd. Hey Siri, how much is 70 million degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
The answer is 126,032 degrees Fahrenheit.
126 million degrees Fahrenheit is what we're talking about. Fusion steps towards reality was simply not true. And the money they raised, these are not investors who are trying to make money on their investments. They're just throwing money at this industry. So it's a tax write-off. That's Google and Chevron is using, because they don't pay federal, state, or provincial taxes, state taxes, county taxes. They're a big corporation, so they take all their tax money, it goes into an offshore account. And then once in a while, they'll say to the government, look, we were cheating right here, so you can fine us for $1 billion. So they got money to be friends with, right? But they're not good companies, right? They don't pay taxes in your country. They put all the money offshore, and then they buy off politicians and regulatory agencies. And they use the money for nefarious stuff too, like this. And you can still write this off, and the taxpayer still has to pay for it. But they don't pay taxes in your country. The taxpayer pays the bill for all of these people on top of that. It's a terrible idea, right? Giving them certain human rights is a terrible idea. They don't have all the same rights as a human, but they have enough. And Justice Hugo Black had wrote an eloquent dissent in the 1930s about corporate personhood, because that's what it's called, corporate personhood. And what the corporations had done in increments over a few decades was piggybacked in on the slavery law. And so the law, this is what Justice Hugo Black had said, the Supreme Court Justice, in a dissenting paper, that given corporations human rights, by piggybacking in on the slavery law, which meant to free an oppressive people from an oppressive government, was now being used by corporations to oppress a sovereign people, and a lot of countries use the American constitutions, the Canadians' Bill of Rights, the British Magna Carta, right, as a basis for rights in their countries. And so these illegal human rights that are afforded to these big companies, nuclear industry included, which is why you can't hold them accountable, has to be changed, has to be challenged. And because it's an illegal amendment done with malice, created through malice with the slavery law, there is a realistic possibility that can be re-amended to exclude them. Because they're like, a company originally had a charter, and the charter dictated how big the company can get, how many employees it can have, where it can be situated to make sure it didn't become a problem for the communities, for the country, and everything else. It didn't become belligerent to the dissolvent citizens of the country. And this was a great check. That was the checks and balances. So if the country was polluting your community, then people could be arrested. The owners could be arrested. Their company could be liquidated to pay outstanding employees' wages and debt, and for restitution of the damage that they'd done, right? So there was a way forward with a corrupt company. But by giving them human rights through corporate personhood by piggybacking in illegally on the slavery law, now you don't have that ability. You can't, like, so Mark Zuckerberg can't go to jail. His company can get a fine, but he doesn't care because he doesn't pay taxes. His money goes in offshore accounts. So when he gets a fine, he just takes a tiny fraction of the money he already stole from your country by not paying taxes. If you don't pay taxes, then they'll come and steal everything you own and throw you in jail too. So it's a very bigoted and prejudiced and biased and racist is what these companies are. Ross Koningstein, nice last name, founder of Google's nuclear energy. We're investing for a cleaner energy future. Well, you can't call, Ross, you can't call nuclear clean. It's the most resource-intensive industry in human history. Everything that's used is forever destroyed on top of that. It can't be recycled. And the laws that allow it to be recycled don't mean that it's safe. And so all you're going to do is hurt people because these things release radiation. And they're making the claim that fusion will not melt down and will not have any pollution when they don't have an actual fusion reactor to quantify that. And when you're talking about temperatures of 126 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures, that's hotter than a bomb. And so if it goes wrong, it's going to be worse than a bomb because you already have the temperatures. And if you put half the energy into geothermal, you wouldn't need fusion and you wouldn't need nuclear and you wouldn't need your massive small modular reactors that are 240 feet tall, which is 50 feet taller than Fukushima, yet you're calling them small modular reactors. You people are insane. And you're insane because there's no checks and balances to hold you accountable. There's no incentive not to be evil. There's no charters. There's corporate personhood, so they can never be held accountable. It's as backwards as you can get. That should never exist, eh? Right? That's the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Magna Carta are designed so that corporate personhood can't exist, but because there was no checks and balances, corruption, and with the constitutional lawyers. Google and engineers worked on site at the facility for years. They worked on site. It's designed to be carbon free. Like, it's the most resource intensive industry in human history. That looks so carbon free. Look at it. How is this carbon free? Like, without carbon, you can't have puppies or people or anything else on the planet. Birds and trees. You look like the moon without carbon, stupid. Nuclear, everything there is triply inspected before it's even put on site. It's the most resource-intensive industry. And if you look at the studies on the tritium-3H, not tritium, but tritium-3H, that's going to be released from a fusion, because you're talking about so much power that all the water is tritiated, for starters, minimum. But the studies that we've talked about over the many years, longer than they've been working, Google engineers been working at TAE, it's designed to be carbon free. It's like the most bizarre statement imaginable. Really, it's designed to be carbon free. Yep. With no meltdown risk or long-lived radioactive waste. Of course, that's simply not true. That's an absurd lie. On demand, safe, no meltdowns. You can't quantify that assertion without a fusion reactor. And because you're producing neutrons, then everything is going to be bombarded with neutrons. So how are you going to have no nuclear waste? The site becomes irradiated immediately forever. Plasma is 70 million degrees Celsius, 126 million degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. Junta nuclear power plant could endanger regional security. The Junta is the Malaysian, Myanmar, rather, military coup, right? There's quite a few coups down there. And the current Junta, what is it? How is it pronounced? Because I'm not from that language, so but there's the Junta's attempt to build a nuclear power plant, because Russia said that they would go ahead and build a nuclear power plant for that occupying, and because I don't know a lot about the politics of that country, I'm not going to try to pretend that I know anything. But what we do know is there's been a lot of military coups that have taken, disposed the current politicians and then so-called installed their own, per se. And the politician is just a normal everyday person. They're somebody who just got elected. Now they're all of a sudden they're politicians. Not like they're. So if you have a military coup, whoever you put in charge, they become a politician, right? And that's the way the world has always been, though, right? There's always been these coups. And in the last 100 years or so, for North America, has been very little. What is it? They used to say blood should run every 20 years to get rid of the corruption. Well, the world has gotten lazy. Once TV showed up, everybody got pretty lazy after that. But it won't stop there. It could also affect the safety, stability of other countries. Once you got rid of cash, then everything changed forever. Once you went to plastic, because cash, everybody would pocket full of cash. They couldn't sit around the house. Lots of people, a big percentage was out hanging out, drinking or whatever, buying stuff or gambling or whatever. So money, cash in your society was the best thing ever happened to your society. That's why your society prospered and expanded, and that's why wealth was distributed, because there was always cash floating around. So if you go look at the Philippines, there's no plastic is for ATM machines, but if you're out to restaurants or out to supermarkets, 90% of them will only take cash. And they have thriving markets, just hand over fist cash everywhere. The taxis are all independent. They all take cash. It keeps society just active the entire time. This issue could seriously threaten the future security stability of Myanmar and its people, but it won't stop there. It could affect the safety stability of other countries in the region and their citizens. Well, not if you keep. This is true for any country, particularly a nuclear country. During the Junta leader, senior general, visit to Russia 2025 in March, the two countries signed a joint agreement to build a small-scale nuclear facility in Myanmar, 110 megawatt. They didn't say when, of course, but there is no small modular reactors. Well, Canada has a massive small modular reactor, it's 240 feet tall. Stupid as shit, man. They call it a small modular reactor, and of course your media is not going to question it. Their job is to cut your throat too. Sellafield nuclear cleanup slow and too costly. Yeah, it's nuclear. What do you expect? Look at a barbed wire. Who the hell is going to break into a nuclear wasteland? Or is that to keep them in, I suppose? Concerns just keep the homeless and destitute they got working there in, so they can't get out. Concern over a suboptimal workplace culture at a disease factory. Really? At a nuclear site, suboptimal. That sounds about right. Should be scumbag optimal. Members of the Parliament Public Account Committees urged the government and the idiots you hired on not to be scumbags, that turned out to be scumbags, and the bosses, the retards from the nuclear industry, at the sprawling collection of crumbling buildings. There's 1,000 buildings on that site. A lot of buildings on that site, Dave, don't know what's in it. They never seen inside. No one's seen inside of it for like 70 years. In Crumbia, where they have cancer clusters in the children, leukemia clusters, and they blamed it on the common flu. They didn't know what else it could be. They're right alongside the dirtiest nuclear site in Europe. No, it can't. The actual academic studies blaming cancer clusters in children on the flu, the common flu. Academic studies that are peer-reviewed. So other universities took and said, yep, that's what's going on. Man, like I always feel bad for the people of Britain because the universities and the nuclear industry and the media, they're just literally just revolting parasites. How else could you describe that a lot? They're on a whole different level of scum, though, aren't they? There's no repercussion, right? There's a big incentive to be a scumbag, though, in the nuclear industry. It's just, that's how, like, look at Kaylee Cunningham last night. There's a big incentive to be a degenerate piece of shit. Right? They don't hire good people. They only hire degenerate pieces of shit because otherwise other people start feeling bad. Everybody else will feel bad. Oh, he's actually a pretty good guy. They're not used to that around the coffee room and can't enjoy my coffee break anymore. There's a good person here. I'm used to being around all these scumbags. In 2023, the Guardian's nuclear leak investigation revealed a string of safety concerns. Really, in 2023? You got 8 million liters a day from the mixed oxide reactor that melted down in 1957. It's still hemorrhaging out every day into the Atlantic Ocean, for goodness sakes. No shame in saying you're scumbags. You got, like, everybody in the nuclear industry knows they're scumbags. There's very few of them that are just like the functional autistic people that work there, but everybody else, that it's acceptable to be a scumbag. That's how come they make big paychecks. That's how they can live these exorbitant lifestyles. As well as cybersecurity failings and allegations of a poor workplace culture. Because they bring in these temporary workers, right? These homeless and destitute victims of society, and they'll complain because they've been treated like shit, but that's just normal on these nuclear sites. It's a sign of respect to try to kill your buddy on them sites. The ultimate cost of cleaning up Sellafield, which contains waste from the weapons program, from the plutonium mixed oxide fuel reprocessing, nuclear meltdowns and everything else, has been estimated at $136 billion, could take 100 years. There is zero possibility they're going to clean that up for less than $700 billion sterling or pounds. Zero possibility. It's going to take 100 years. Who's going to be here in 100 years to see if they were... Can you actually, like... Donerae in Scotland is going to take 300 years. It can't be as bad as Sellafield. Sellafield is hideous what they've done there. As with the fight against climate change, which is caused by 80 years of emissions, 80 years of invisible snowstorms covering the entire planet, pulsing energy at the speed of light every second. That's why you have actual global warming, the effects of that, right? You're killing all the bacteria, and the fungus, and the forests, and the meadows, and so you're eventually, the whole biota disappears. Foliage litters doesn't break down. You have all these huge issues. The ground doesn't soak up water. Now when you have rain, you have these flash floods. When you have lightning strikes, because the foliage and litter didn't break down because you killed the bacteria and fungus, and by proxy the biota, that would break it all down. You have these huge chunks floating over and landing of fire, right? That would never exist in a normal functional ecosystem. This is a plume model based on 23 days of not a model, but a study from the French government of 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima per cubic meter of air of cesium-137. It's a catastrophic event, is what you're looking at. Documented. And there's so many other isotopes that are documented in the same plume. Pretending it's not true is simply it's like let me see. It's like your partner gives you a call and says you had a car accident. You ran head on into a car, and you say, what kind of car was it? Well, I don't know because it's invisible. And like, come on, honey, just tell me, what was it, a car or a truck or what was it? Well, I can't tell because it was invisible. Well, how do you know it's a car? Because their horn blew. And you're supposed to accept all of this. And you're like, no. Well, can you send me a picture? Because we live in that time now where they can just take a picture and text it to you, right? Well, I can't send you the picture because the car is invisible. Are you calling me a lawyer? No, honey, I'm not calling you a lawyer. The police probably will, but I'm not calling you a lawyer. So is that rationale? That's the nuclear industry. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me for some reason, but it doesn't make sense to you. Makes it hard to grasp the immediacy of safety hazards and cost overruns that delays can have. We're talking about the nuclear industry. The entire construction is predicated upon cost overruns. And it's always like 4 to 10 times whatever the original number was they gave you. If you say it's a million, if they say it's a billion, then it's 10, 12, 14 billion is the true number. Sellafield, which is home to the world's largest store of plutonium. Do you know how much plutonium they've actually lost there? I think it was like 27,000 pounds was lost in one facility. It just off-gassed. Well, we didn't know there was plutonium in there. The people from the 1970s didn't tell us. And it's not there anymore, so I guess it got out. Was that around the same time you had all the cancer clusters for the children next door? Yeah, but the study said it was the flu, Dana. Oh, okay. Said in February that nearly $3 billion new funding was not enough. $3 billion extra new funding a year. Home to the world's largest store of plutonium. 90% of the money is stolen through administration. On top of that, at every one of these disease factories. Hallelujah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. After more than 60 years of development, I love this story, here's the nuclear engine that is set to go to Mars with NASA. NASA's such a disgusting scam, eh? What a scam they turned out to be. They don't have a single redeeming quality there. Oh, I almost never got the show done tonight. I was like, ugh. About an hour before. I said, I gotta snap myself out of this. After more than 60 years of development, here's the nuclear engine that is set to go to Mars with NASA. I can't read that without blowing up laughing. Believing anything NASA tells you is just, should be ashamed of yourself. After more than 60 years, what are they talking about? I don't have a record of 60 years of them doing anything like this. They just wake up in the morning and they just make a tweet or something, and then somebody writes a story about it. And that's what we got here. After the moon, yeah, it's hard to comprehend he went to the moon. If you look at all the videos that are available, if you look at the testimony of the alleged astronauts who all quit right after allegedly going to the moon, it's pretty. It looks like it was just a public relations stunt because they're afraid that the Soviet Union was going to beat them to it, so they just go, we went to the moon. Yeah, it looks a lot like Arizona desert, but it wasn't. It was the moon. It's Mars that's attracting all the attention. Why not go back to the moon? Remember there last year, the artism, or I can't remember. They had this mock-up of astronauts, and they were going to head back to the moon, right? And it's like about 5 months later, up goes the rocket. Like, oh shit, this is really happening, and they had dummies instead of real astronauts. They said they lost the technology to go back to the moon. Uh-huh. How about AI? Can AI help you out? We'll get you some AI. Maybe they can help you out. How can you go to Mars when you haven't even went to the moon? How does that work? It's just a big money grab? It's really hard to say with the nuclear industry, man. Let me go back here for a second. Just hang on here. Man, the censorship on me is really special. They like me. Deep down inside, they actually like me. That's why they censor me. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. I know YouTube. YouTube got a crush on me, right? They love me. Like Dina. Hallelujah. I want to hear that song again now. I should play it right now while I'm looking. Bear with me, I got a good giggle for you here. What's wrong? You don't want to giggle? There you go. And yeah, that'll work. That'll work just fine. Hallelujah. So last night, 1:38 a.m., I had 100 views. That's pretty cool, man. Right on, baby. That video's going out there. 6 hours later, at 7:50 a.m. this morning, after having a cup of tea, I had a little peek. I'm really anal about documenting this, by the way. I do this every day. For as long as I can remember, I've documented these patterns. I love patterns. I don't know what. Whoa, I was like that when I was young, too. Something fucked up in my head, I guess. So 6 hours later, I had 100 views. So I never got a single view in 6 hours. Google! Turns out that in 11 hours, I had 104 views. So I only got 4 views in 10 hours. Google likes messing with me. That's okay. Significant milestone to dismantle the Royal Navy nuclear submarine. I'll say they got 19 or 20 of these submarines, nuclear submarines, with the reactor cores in them, tied up, basically abandoned, derelicts, and they don't know how to decommission it. So they're really proud of themselves. They started one. They're like, well, I guess if that's what you want to call it, they got the tail off it. So they're all giddy. They're all proud of themselves. Oh, wow, we got the tail off it. Because we're cold. Nuclear Decommissioning Authority in United Kingdom is the biggest joke I've ever heard of. They haven't decommissioned anything in their whole existence. They sure get a lot of money, though, don't they? The U.S. next nuclear era begins as Air Force activates its first Sentinel missile base. Here we go. AI missile base. I'm assuming that's what's going on. So after all this time, 80 years or so of like typically, let me see if I can find it. Because back in the day, I know where to find it. Just give me a moment here. I don't got to type nothing in. I just got to navigate through this folder, those folders. I think it's on the bottom of this one, actually. Yep, down here somewhere. In fact, I even know exactly. Ooh, I got one. Can I find another one? I got one picture. Should be another one there for me. Well, it's not a per se picture. It's a unique. There it is. You like this? So each one of those dots is a farmer's field and a nuclear missile silo. Each one of those dots. Same for this. Each one of those dots is a missile silo. Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, Shelby, Great Falls, Lewiston. And so you can launch a missile from these farmer fields. Now, the idea of all of these missiles, there was 55,000 of them at one point. And the idea was you put them in these little communities, and that way the communities are human shields. And so the idea was if the manufactured enemy attacks one of those little communities, they're not going to say they attacked the missile silo, they're going to say they attacked our little community. And then the country should get behind them to go to war. But all of those missile silos, they're actually human shields. The people that live around it. That's what that's all about. Anyway, the Sentinel Site Activation Task Force, SATAF, Detachment 12 in Minnow Air Force Base, the land-based leg of the U.S. nuclear triad. The thing is, if you use them, then you can't cash your checks anymore, as I like to say. Neither can we. So what's the point of using them? Assured mutual destruction is not a solution as far as I can tell. Unless you're the elite and you got bunkers under the ocean, I suppose. And over 400 Minuteman III missiles deployed across strategic missile fields. You know, farmer fields. And they have to change the tritium-3H in them every 11 years before it decays, right? Which is on the 12th year. And so it's it can't contain the tritium on top of that. So the tritium is always released into the farmer fields. New system will replace all major delivery infrastructure components, missiles, silos, and command and control systems. New coffee rooms for everybody, I guess. New bunks for everybody. New pillowcases for all the Minutemen and women who are there to do their patriotic duty and blow up your country with nuclear weapons, which are maintained by the Department of Energy. That's the scariest statement imaginable. The missiles and warheads are maintained by the Department of Energy. Kind of lose all faith in humanity when you see that one. And will remain unchanged in yield, number, and design. Well, they're going to get more. Because Russia is very well likely to use a nuclear weapon on Ukraine's drone factories at this point. Now, I've got stories about that coming up, by the way. But just in case I forget it, my train of thoughts. There was a bunch of the nuclear bombers were blown up. And the reason the nuclear bombers were vulnerable is because that's part of a treaty. You got like the Americans will keep their new nuclear bombers out visibly so it can be seen from a satellite. The Ruskies, the Chinese will keep their nuclear bombers out. And so that way nobody's worried about a sneak attack, right, so to speak. And so by Ukraine going in, Ukraine didn't do it. This was NATO. Clearly this was NATO, which is disgusting parasites, by the way. Should have been dissolved after the Soviet Union was dissolved, because that's the only reason they exist. And they were so powerful you can't get rid of them. Now they got everything, nuclear weapons, aircraft carriers, they got it all now. It's 30 militaries. It's the stupidest thing imaginable. They got so much power you'll never get rid of them. And they make the big bucks if there's a war. They don't make the big bucks if there's no war. So they want to make big bucks. So they need a war. And so blowing up a tower or something like that in your country to justify a war is right in their books. That's their playbook, is do stuff like that so they can get to war. This base remains the center of gravity in our Air Force and the cornerstone of the nation's strategic deterrent. This base. So why don't you just paint a big friggin' target onto it? Why would you come out and say that? This is our center of gravity. Well, where do you think the boogeyman is going to want to hit you to now? Like if I was the so-called opposition, and that's considered your center of gravity, then I'm going to put a big bullseye on your head. Nobody said that these people were smart. They just said they were ruthless, right? The Sentinel system is expected to remain operational through 2075, serving as the backbone of American land-based nuclear deterrence in a multipolar, which is the best way to describe everybody in the nuclear industry is polar, bipolar, a high-threat security environment. The big threat is you would use the weapons and destroy our planet, right? That's the biggest threat, isn't it? The biggest threat is that the majority of you people are unstable maniacs that would be happy to push the trigger. That you're literally the worst people for the job every time. That's why you get it, because you're a moron. Ukraine's spiderweb operation could spark a tactical nuclear attack, killing hundreds of thousands. Russia, just before we went live here tonight, I was still perusing the news because I'm an idiot. I can't get enough of this stuff. Sometimes, like I get what's going on. I've been at this for a long time. This is what makes I find this stuff fascinating, right? That this many idiots can tie their shoes is amazing to me. I don't know how they do it. I know that most of them had tutors to learn how to tie their shoes, but I'm not kidding, by the way. Most of these people needed tutors to learn to tie their friggin' shoes. Ukraine's spiderweb operation, that's what they call it. So, like, there's many ways you can do it with boats. They've done it with transport trucks and containers, right? But there's many, and you know, what was really interesting about some of this was that they parked these transport trucks, but it was the launch mechanism that I never talked about last night. There's a few things I didn't talk about last night because I forgot about it, I guess. But anyway, the transport trucks, some of these drones were launched by high-pressure air. And so the air would shoot way up in the air before the motors would kick in. It was considered like a silent launch. That's not good. That's bad news. And so the truck had an automatic roof. The roof, when they pushed the button, the roof rolled out of the way. And the drones came up out of it or went out vertically sideways out of it. And this was they said it took them 18 months. I doubt highly this took 18 months to put together. That's just them trying to blow their own horn. But now you can do it with any car, right? The trunk opens up and all these drones come out. You can do it with boats. You can have Gatling guns that shoots the drones out. Shoots the drones 16 miles, and then the drones will bust out of this shell, and then they'll come down and they'll chase their target around. When the target trips up and falls down, they'll run into them and blow them up, right? That's the future we live in now, is chasing people down with drones. So how long for Eric Schmidt gets chased down with a drone and blown up, I wonder? And what they were doing, they sent up other drones up high, right, to counter their counter drone electronic defense. And so they were running on singles of their own drones. It's very sophisticated techniques. But now that you got everything out, so they blew up these bombers are by treaties are supposed to be out there sitting in the open. Attacking them is an absolute, is considered an act of war, a vicious act of war. And it's, because that's their nuclear assets, then hitting them with a tactical nuclear weapon is considered appropriate as a response. In fact, many of the intelligence agencies are saying that is the only response you would expect now, would be a nuclear response. And NATO and everybody else be damned. Because if you don't do it, they won't respect you. And of course, Vladimir Putin, his dad worked for Stalin as a military capacity. He was ruthless too. And his mom worked as a nurse on the front line during the Stalin War. She was a part of the amputee teams. So she worked with holding the soldiers down while the doctor took the old bucksaw and knocked off a couple of joints and arms and limbs. So imagine what their son turned out like. Right, he worked for a long time. He worked for the Secret Service, the KGB, the brutal, vicious serial killers, basically, like everybody else in the nuclear industry, I suppose. And now look at him. He's a dictator for so long now. He's acquired a massive amount of wealth. Yeah, it's probably going to go to shit this week. Pretty rough for this planet. It's about to happen, I would imagine. Hopefully I'm wrong, of course, but... Well, let's hope he only uses a tactical nuclear weapon. Let's hope it doesn't get worse than that. This is what I'm expecting right now, is some kind of significant nuclear response. And just before I went live, the media was just starting to report, and there was quite a few headlines that Vladimir Putin says he will be responding to that attack. And it's probably not going to be pretty. And when Vladimir Putin says something like that, well, when you look at his history, his legacy, what his parents done for a living, there's nothing too nasty for him to do. There's nothing off the table. He doesn't have an off switch, so to speak. Colonel Kemp believes that a retaliatory tactical nuclear strike may now be on the table, as Putin is more afraid of appearing weak. I doubt if he's afraid of appearing weak. Why would he be? Name a moment he appeared weak. Look at the wars that country has already waged, my goodness. That's all they know how to do. The only thing they're good at is just misery. Like Israel, right? By using tactical nuclear weapons in response to the spiderweb attack, this could force Kiev to surrender. I don't think he's looking for surrender anymore. I think he's looking for big craters in the ground where there used to be a city. He gave 4 possible scenarios. And of course, lastly, an attack on a nuclear power station would be worse than Chernobyl. So radiate the whole country and the entire planet. The radiation, as we know, covers the whole planet. It never just stays local. It's an invisible snowstorm within 20 to 30 days. It's the French government showing the entire planet destroyed on 23 days after Fukushima. This was a study. This is not an opinion or a conjecture or a model. This was a fact, and this has already happened to you. Our only nuclear option now is the doomsday weapon. Really? The doomsday weapon. Great. And Putin knows we will never provoke it. Really? Blowing up his nuclear bombers on a runway where they're sitting vulnerable, and which was because of a treaty. Do you really think that treaty is still on the table? I don't. I'm not stupid. This was kind of a strange picture. Notice how everything at the top of the picture is blurred out? I'll show you why, but UK nuclear site could leak. Every time I hear that word, I just want to kick a nuclear scientist in the nuts so bad, man. Including the female nuclear scientist. I heard they got nuts too. UK nuclear site could leak until 2050. Shit for brains warrant. Sellafield nuclear plant. Why are they hiding everything on the perimeter of the nuclear site? I can't possibly... Well, you get a little hint right there. Now let's go out to Bing and get ourselves a picture. So I got that picture there. Let's have a look at it. What's on the perimeter of the site? Oh, farms. Everywhere you look. Why did they block that out, though? It's just farms. Right? That's clearly... This was blotted out. Look at that. It's not like it's those buildings. Because we got all kinds of pictures of those buildings. Every picture on the internet got pictures of those buildings. It's just... Every nuclear power plant has farms all the way up to the property. And this site is ridiculous. Releases every day. Forever. So imagine how brutal the food is. Which is why we got this particular poll tonight, by the way. Look at the censorship again tonight. Shocking, isn't it? Should all nuclear fuel pools surrounded by farms / nuclear power plants be closed to stop the genocide at your supermarkets? I think if the world was to appreciate how evil this industry, just this facet of the nuclear industry actually is, if they were able to appreciate the enormity of that equation, because every nuclear power plant looks like that except for just a few of them. Maybe 15 or something. But just about every nuclear power plant. And this is why we were saying, how are you going to have a nuclear renaissance? Where are you going to get all the farmland to put the nuclear power plants to? Right? Because that's what the engineers are looking for, farmland, clearly. Britain's most hazardous buildings threaten to leak radioactive water until 2050. Like the people that put the word leak there, Jesus, got me good. Yeah, got me good that time. Hey, buddy, hang on here. Ho. Make sure I got the right end of... Hang on there.
Hello, Mr. Dana.
I got to make sure I got the right part of the phone. You're good. Go ahead, James. Yeah, James Lucid on the phones.
I just had to call real quick because I'm just stunned. I'm like, again, this isn't the first time this has happened, Dana. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Oh,
but
go ahead.
The poll you had is like so appropriate for the project I just completed.
Oh, is that right? Sweet.
We weren't in sync or not. It's like we didn't talk about this behind the scenes.
No.
Or nothing. It's not a conspiracy.
Oh, really? Eh? I love it. I'm smurfing up my phone here.
Isn't that weird? I mean, it's just the weirdest. I can't figure it out. This is not the first time this has happened. I'm like, I gotta call Dana and just be like,
what?
There's something
wrong.
There's something in sync in the universe, maybe. I don't know. But I saw that story about this Gen Z farmer in Fukushima planting kiwis. Like, oh, it's all great now.
Yeah.
The soil's fine. We're gonna, and it's all about revitalization. They're just like, it's recovery. It's just like the nuclear industry's just like, throwing this out there. Like, isn't this great? Everything's back to normal again. It's safe. It's within limits, Dana. It's like the Beck rules are low.
Sounds so weird when someone says that, because I'm used to doing that kind of stuff, not having someone say it to me.
But
that was like a dream come true that time. Somebody actually said something like that to me. I was like, what? Jesus. I think it just lost me sight that time.
I just had to call in because I just thought how weird it was. Like, wow, that's strange. Like, of all the topics, because you said it earlier, it's like, it's not like I'm doing anything important. It's not like I'm gifted or anything. There's just so many things that you can throw at it. There's so many things. Anyone could be doing that.
Oh, man.
You know,
Well, you're not going to
takes
run
a
out of
little bit of
subjects.
time.
You're not going to run out of scumbags
You can't
to
run
make
out.
fun of.
But to be in sync with the poll tonight, I don't know.
I
Like,
love
that's
it.
like winning
I love it,
the lottery
man. That's
still.
fantastic.
Anyway, I just
It's-
wanted to call in.
It's bound to happen. Bound to happen, buddy.
So crazy. All right.
All
man,
right.
Love you so much.
Okay, love you,
All
buddy.
right, okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that's hilarious. I'm looking forward to it, actually. That was James Lucid. I guess his newest song. His newest song is about farming. So my poll is perfect. Should all nuclear scientists be hung on the neck? I mean, should all nuclear fuel pools surrounded by farms be closed to stop the genocide at supermarkets? Yeah, so there's a farmer, a young kid, who knows nothing. He just he knows all the farmland was available and the government was throwing money at him if he went there, and he went for it. And this stuff grows on its own. You don't need to be a farmer to grow this stuff. And so they set him up. They took care of him. Boy, they gave him all the media attention so he can sell all of his stuff. And everything must be perfect. Because, hey, he's growing food there. The government wouldn't stab you in the back. And then James was switched on to that story. He's got quite a few of his songs lately are based up on the recent headlines. And that's really cool because that's a good approach. Like on the other side of the spectrum, of course, is there's so many scumbags in this industry that it's easy picking, right? Let's keep going here, because if I start digressing, we're never going to get anything accomplished. Radioactive water. This is not radioactive water. This is absurd, lethal by the liter if just walking past this stuff. The nuclear waste has been leaking into the ground from the storage silo at the Sellafield facility in Columbia. On one side of it, they got 8 million liters a day going straight into the Atlantic Ocean. And plus they have this silo. Now the silo is a fuel pool basically inside of it. And they haven't been in there since 1950, 1960. And the people that didn't know what was in there, their records were lost and they died. So they don't really know what's in this silo. But they know it's fuel, right? Fuel rods. But because it's such a lethal dose, even robots can't go in there. And that the stuff that's oozing out of there is equal to, they said, we'll fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every 3 years. Well, Olympic swimming pool is a massive pool. And this stuff you're talking about, if you took 2 liters of it and put it in the wall of a subway station, everybody who walks past it for 1 million years will drop dead that day. So imagine an Olympic swimming pool full of this stuff. So where are they storing that to? How are they collecting that? All of these questions are insane questions because of the toxicity we're talking about. A storage silo at the Sellafield facility in Columbia. Hallelujah. Enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every 3 years, give or take 2 years. It said the risk was highlighted by the Magnox, which is the reactors in the United Kingdom typically, Swarf storage silo, described by Sellafield owner. Who owns Sellafield? I thought the government owned it. And the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, who's never decommissioned anything in their entire legacy, particularly the Magnox reactors, as the most hazardous building in the United Kingdom. So we're not talking about tritium, okay? We're talking about brutal plutonium, brutal curium. We're talking about fuel rods. We're talking about it's more deadlier than anything we can conceive. And so that's there's a swimming pool, Olympic-sized swimming pool each year. So basically 2 normal swimming pools a year of releases that they have to try to collect. How do you collect that releases when you can't even get in the building? How does that work, I wonder? So, the whole thing is, I should do a whole video just on that story alone. Likely to continue leaking. How are you going to stop it? Until the oldest section of the building has been emptied in the late 2050s. So they're hoping in 25 years, instead of 15 years as they were previously expected, in 25 years they're hoping to have one side of the building empty. Can you imagine the releases are taking place as they're doing this from that facility? Because the consequences of opening the building up is massive releases airborne. But trying to take stuff out of there, this stuff is so volatile, if it's exposed to air, it'll detonate. And there's a lot of nuances there. That's why I should do an entire show just on this one story. And I think I just might try to do it. I still got to do a Chernobyl story, but we still haven't covered the Chernobyl anniversary. I got to smarten up. Maybe tomorrow night. Tomorrow's Thursday. If it does a show tomorrow night, then knowing me, I'll be doing a show tomorrow night. This is a race that Sellafield risk losing. They've lost everything else. What's the big whoop? Cleaning up the entire Sellafield site over the next century, good luck on that, has soared to $177 billion US. And full site remediation was not expected until 2125 in 100 years. But Donneray won't be repatriated for at least 325 years. That was the actual number, 325. And in some media it says 300. But the original number for Donneray, which is in Scotland, is 300 years. 325 years. Which is, there's no way that's going to be as bad as Sellafield. And they were both reprocessing sites. What they done at Donneray was crazy. They couldn't deal with the waste, and so they just dug these great big deep wells and threw the waste down there. Unrecoverable, right? And so now they're hiring high school students to go out there and train to be stewards of radiation, because they don't appreciate how lethal it is out there. And when they get sick, of course, they transferred somewhere else where they mysteriously died, and the autopsy will come back. It has nothing to do with the nuclear. Because this is how they roll. Pakistan is testing nuclear weapons, or, because this is a question, right? Earthquake occurring every 3 hours at the place where Pakistan's nuclear stockpile is kept. This is a crazy story. Now, they're not testing nuclear weapons as far as I can tell, but they've had 19 small earthquakes on a fault line that's been dormant. And just the last couple of days, which is typically means you got a fault line that's becoming active. Now they're trying to spin it and saying that this is normal, but it's a dormant fault line, so it probably has no activity for thousands of years. So they shouldn't move their nuclear arsenal editor because you'd expect a significant earthquake soon. Or near Pakistan's nuclear arsenal, raising questions is Islamabad is testing its nuclear weapons. Right? No, just well past the buck every chance you get, I suppose. The impact of these earthquakes is probably being felt more because they are shallow and concentrated near the buildings of the city. What happened at the Shika, the Noto Peninsula, in January 1st, 2024, last year, was a 3,500-year-old fault line that was dormant and ruptured. And it was epic on top of that. Like there was 1,600 landslides, 1,500 aftershocks. It lifted the ocean floor for a mile offshore up 13 feet. There was 6 harbors dried up. It created a tsunami for over 100 miles. It split the whole Noto Peninsula 150 mile. Like we're talking like you're looking down into a gorge, like you're looking down into hell, where it split the earth open. Now the nuclear weapons won't go off if that happens, but there's all kinds of other things that could cause a big release. He also said the buildings built on the fault lines should be prepared to deal with earthquakes up to a 6 magnitude, a shallow one, where all the nuclear weapons are to. Really? Like it's no secret that the military, North Americans military, has some pretty impressive weapons that the public is not quite aware of. That can cause earthquakes for sure, and the evidence is you're not allowed to talk about it on YouTube. So when you can't talk about it on YouTube, it's a psyop, right? Can't talk about certain things that have already happened because they've actually gave me strikes on my other account for talking about it. Sizewell C, look at the picture they put there. Look at the picture they put there. Sizewell C is maybe, probably, might, we're not really sure, could possibly get the go-ahead within weeks. Like we've heard this narrative. This could go on for years and years and years and years. But the design, there's your design. What do you see about this? Surrounded by farms as far as you can see. Why is it every nuclear power plant has to be surrounded by farms? What's up with that? Hello, everybody. How are we all doing here? Yeah, they got bunkers. Yeah, there you go. That's not a bad idea, B. Should all nuclear fuel pools surrounded by farmers be closed to stop the genocide at supermarkets? Well, you know that I'm going to get censored for that one. I can't have that kind of a poll. Last night's poll was a really good poll. That's why I got censored, I would imagine, so hard last night. That was a great poll last night. Should the universities be held responsible for the lies their students are taught and then are repeating for the rest of their lives? 100%. In fact, if you get cancer, you should sue MIT right away because they promoted nuclear and nuclear is not safe. The government is understood to be in the final, and they covered it up for all these years, the safety of it. You'll probably win. The government is understood to be in the final stages of securing billions of pounds of investments, and some of this is from the Canadian Pension Fund and the United States Pension Fund. Unbelievable. Why would you invest your pension fund in Hinkley Point C nuclear plant or any nuclear plant? Why would you do that? If you look at their current nuclear plant, their building is full of rats. It's probably never going to come to fruition. I don't know how they're going to be able to get around the fact that the site is buried in rats, because the rats will chew through all the wires. So the potential investors, one of the Canadian Pension Fund, CDPQ, is insane. And Brookfield is a Canadian pension fund too, asset management here in Canada. The UK Pension Fund. And I thought I seen the United States Pension Fund there too. Backed by Singaporean Infrastructure Fund. This is absurdness, how they're going to get their hands on the money, how they're planning on. It's pretty desperate. Meta becomes the latest big tech company turning to nuclear power for AI needs. Why does all of a sudden everybody has to suffer and be poisoned for 1 million years because Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and a few other companies want to create AI, therefore everybody else has to support nuclear worldwide. How did they ever cook up such a stupid... And I mean, they're pushing that narrative for what, 8-9 months or something now? That's the narrative that showed up right out of the blue. The investment with Meta will also expand the output of Constellation Energy. Constellation owns 3 Mile Island. They want to fire up 3 Mile Island. It tells you how insane these people actually are. As if 3 Mile Island hasn't done enough damage. I mean, when people came back home, their pets were blind or dead. There's nothing released in it. Oh, okay. Oh, you should go back and see my 3 Mile Island videos now, shouldn't you? The study clearly tells a different story. A terrible story, horrifying story. Meta turns to nuclear power. I'm sure it's not just nuclear power. If they turn to coal, you won't see any headlines. If you turn to gas, you won't see any headlines. If you turn to geothermal, you won't see any headlines. If you turn to solar, you won't see any headlines. They turn to nuclear power, the headline is everywhere today. It's everywhere. I almost clawed my eyes out there earlier this afternoon. It was just headline after headline. It was probably 100 headlines. Like anything to promote nuclear, everybody has to go out and lick boots in the medias. They've got to run out there and screech from the top of the lung, they're gonna get nuclear powers, whatever. You gotta support them. It's really strange, eh? It's like the only thing on the planet that matters is nuclear. When you come to the media, the universities, the government. Not just energy, but period. Like, the sun don't matter, the moon don't matter. The only thing that matters is nuclear. South Korea new leader vows to heal wounds with nuclear-armed North. So why would you say the words nuclear-armed North, Don? South Korean president is going to vow to reach out to the nuclear-armed North. Nuclear-armed and heal wounds. Nuclear-armed. Because they got to turn the victim into the enemy, right? United Nations invaded North Korea after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan was occupied it for 50 years. And so they were slaves for 50 years, and now they've been slaves for over 70 years since the United Nations attacked them. Millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, millions of orphans, because they wouldn't give up the minerals in the mountains, right, to UN, which is 195 militaries. So they've been ostracized from humanity for 120 years. And if they didn't build nuclear weapons, they would look like Ukraine does today. And South Korean president, the disgusting media, nuclear armed. What choice did they have? You're nuclear armed too, you piece of shit. You're just too stupid to build your own weapons. You got the American weapons there. You disgusting maggot. Nuclear armed North and heal the wounds that you created. You ostracized them, demonized them for 100 years. You really think they should care about you anymore? And then you're actually scumbags on top of that for what you've done to all the women and children. You forced them to live in poverty for a century because you're scumbags. Your entire population of a bunch of scumbags. I hope North Korea tells them fuck off. No matter how costly, peace is better than war. What war? They just want to be free. They just want to be able to go to Disneyland. Go do stupid shit. They can't do nothing. They can't have nothing because you people have destroyed them for over 100 years. In fact, you made a really good living on denying them a living. Trump reaffirms hard line as Iran nuclear deal will not allow any enrichment. Sure, Iran don't care. Not like they didn't expect that. And no matter what, all your bases will get destroyed in the Middle East. Those bases won't even last a few hours in the Middle East that the Americans have all over the place. They're already pre-targeted with massive amounts of sophisticated drones. Same as all of Israel infrastructure is gone, including their nuclear facility. If Israel takes out the nuclear facility, it's on. And if you send in 1 million drones, then the nuclear weapon's going to go off and take them all out of the sky, and then it's going to rain hell after that. Iran will take out everything in Israel, and Israel most likely deserves it. They've never fought a real military. They know they can't win against a real military. Iranian, and I forget the proper way to pronounce that. Iranian? Yeah, I think it is. Iranians' official declared readiness of all scenarios while maintaining it has a right to uranium enrichment. The reason it's enriching its uranium is because it was ostracized. Like it had investments in a uranium enrichment facility in another country, and they sold the stocks and kicked them out. And then they put embargoes against them from importing enriched fuel for their test reactors, for instance. And you need it just for a normal reactor. And so they were forced to create their own enrichment program so they can have nuclear, dirty, disgusting, hideous nuclear. And I'm not endorsing anything. I can't stand nuclear anyway, but I'm just telling the story, right? And the nuclear industry is just this big, stupid misery machine, right? The proposal also reportedly included the notion that Iran could join a regional consortium for uranium enrichments as a solution to the enrichment needs. Now, I seen that. I listened to some interviews where that was put to some spokespeople from Iran, and it was put basically this way: how about if you enrich uranium for North Korea and somebody else, I can't remember who else it was, and themselves, right, as a consortium, but that would be monitored by the degenerate International Atomic Retard Agency. I seen that was put out there about a week and a half ago in an interview, and I said to myself, first off, Iran's not going to give up its nuclear ambitions. It's going to end up just like Ukraine if it does. They got no choice, because that's the game at the nuclear industry, is to keep the misery and keep the fear-mongering going, and this is the best way to do it. So you can never get rid of nuclear weapons, right? To keep the fear-mongering going, fear-mongering front and center, so you can never reject nuclear. Everybody's acquiescing because they're worried about the artificial boogeymans, right? The control opposition is there to enforce that. Billions invested in nuclear warheads will support 9,000 Aldermaston jobs. It's a sad story. The UK government plans to invest 15 billion in the nation's nuclear warhead program. Will support 9,000 jobs in a nuclear wasteland known as Aldermaston. For 75 years, that village has been home to the Atomic Weapon Establishment, the AWE, a nuclear research disease factory / center that designs and manufactures nuclear warheads. And what they done for those 75 years, the poison, what they done to the French Polynesians, what they done to the Christmas Island, what they done to United States, because they done nuclear weapons over there. And what they done to Australia is unconscionable. It's unconscionable what they done to Australia. The Maralinga, Montebello, Edmonds Fields. And they also detonated, and they used to wait for the wind to blow across Australia, folks. And they would have like 30, 40, 50 aircraft up checking the weather. They were really good at predicting the weather. and before they set off their nuclear weapons. So it wasn't an accident that all that radiation fell all over Australia. Clearly, that was on purpose. And not only that, they detonated these idiot machines right there. They detonated in Australia on the land over 700 dirty bombs of plutonium and uranium-235. One of them was something like 42 kilograms of plutonium wrapped up in conventional explosives. And then when they were finally finished and went away, it was decades later before the government was finally forced to ask for money to clean up. And they went groveling to the British, and the British said, well, here's a few million, so now piss off. Don't ask us for any more. These are despicable scum, the pro-nuclear community. They're despicable scum. They always have been, and they only hire despicable scum. Their entire legacy is predicated upon hiring despicable scums. Their legacy is disgusting. It's despicable. Another sign of the Canadian leadership in nuclear energy, North America's first small modular reactor received federal and provincial approval. It's a massive small modular reactor, we like to say around here. It's a 240-foot reactor building. Half of it is underground. That's the plan. This is the farthest thing. It's the farthest thing you can get from a small modular reactor. It's a 24-story building. Yeah, but it's a small modular reactor, dude. No, it's a massive small modular reactor. There's a 24-story building under construction. Here I go. Let's bring that up there. This is not something you're going to put on the back of a transport truck. These are massive, massive buildings. 240. It's 50 feet taller than Fukushima, which was a 190-foot, 19-story, 65-meter buildings. These are massive, small modular reactors. We're getting there. Not too much. We'll be on schedule here by the looks of it. Coming in right on schedule. So weird how that works out, isn't it? It's not on purpose. I'm not that smart. The small modular reactor is... Oh, it says small modular reactor. Small modular reactors. So I said, I highlighted as in the yellow small modular reactors to see how many was there. Something like 23, is it? I can't see. At the top of the page, you can kind of see it. Anyway, it's everywhere. Just so, because when you don't highlight it, what happens is you're reading the story, but subconsciously you're being bombarded with SMR in your subconscious. As you glance at the page, not even reading anything, right? This is being imprinted that it's a small modular reactor. That's why they do it in that. These are not small. These are massive skyscrapers. These are 24-story skyscrapers. These are 240-foot buildings, for goodness sakes. This is crazy. The International Atomic Energy Agency hosts the world's first major gathering. This is the first time ever of the nuclear community leaders. So clearly the IAEA's got a lot of donations this year. I know Japan gave them $14.6 million on March 11th. Japan's the third biggest donor anyway, right? But they have 195 countries donate to them. They're not poor by any means. Should all nuclear fuel pools surrounded by firearms be closed to stop the genocide at supermarkets? Get your vote in on that because we're getting close. So all nuclear is local. Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi. Stakeholder engagement Actually, I blew that up here. Stakeholder engagement for nuclear power programs in shitland Vienna, which don't even have a nuclear plant, by the way. Nuclear communities and mayors. And look at it. Look at it all. Look at this creepy. Look at the smile on that. Look at the smile on this one. Oh, Jesus. Ew. Ew. I gotta get a shower. That grocery right behind me that time. That's the scariest feeling I've ever had. Look at all the creepy. Anybody hiding away there? Gotta be a few people hiding away. That's so creepy, man. Yeah, there's somebody up in the back hid away. Let me bring myself back in there. Alright, there's someone, looks like a female, but I don't know for sure in the back there. You can see their jacket. They're like, I gotta hide away. I don't want my kids to see me. Hanging out with all these freaks. That's some scary looking shit, man. He cracks me up though. Look at that. Holy shit. Hang on. I can do some magic here. I might be able to do some magic here. La 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 la. Apparently I can't. Oh. I can. There we go. Don't ask me what I got done there. Hang on a second. That should be up right there. Right there. I should be able to zoom in on that. Yeah, but where are you, Dana? I know. Hang on. This guy here. I'm going to zoom in on that guy. That's freaky as fuck, man. Grossy's down here, so it can't be grossy. Oh, Jesus, that's so scary looking, eh? Hang on, I can do better. Hold on. God bless the IAEA. They always got... That is creepy. Man, I gotta get out of the way because I want to screen capture that guy. Just give me a second here. Ink. Goo. I wonder who he is. Some of them are like, I gotta pinch myself. I can't believe I'm here with all these smart people. They're grossy though. He almost looks human in that picture. That's a rare picture. He actually washed his hair. Look at that. That's not normal. I guess it was the end of the month. You got to get a shower whether he wants to or not time for him. He's usually really dirty, eh? His hair always looks like wire. He's such a despicable monster. Oh, well, let's keep going here. Let me get out of this madness I got myself put into here. Bloop. Grossy. Local representatives from around the globe. So they're local representatives from around the globe. Does anybody understand what that even friggin' means? They got that there too on the sign, local. All nuclear is local. A lot of people use words local like a Mexican term where they're nuts. Local representatives from around the globe. Like what I gotta do is I gotta play that after the show because I got some equipment there. I can play. I'll record that and then I'll play it backwards to see what it really means. Because you know these are evil people, right? Including indigenous people. Oh my gee. Because that's usually where they put all the nuclear waste is the indigenous land, right? International Degenerate Agency's Director General Shit for Brains Grossy addresses the participants of the very first international conference on stakeholder. I got to dig up. There's got to be videos anyway of that. I'm definitely going to have to find it and watch it tomorrow morning for my cup of tea. Nano-nuclear energy announces a partnership with MIT. Does that mean Kaylee Cunningham is going to be working for him? I wonder. It could be. Keep her rolling there. We're almost at the last story. One more after this one. And then James got a new song here, so hang around for that. James has finally cracked 10,000 subscribers. I was smiling about that today. JU, founder and president of Nano-Nuclear Energy, discusses the partnership with MIT and puts the focus on nuclear energy expansion in Canada. How did we get dragged into this? You leave us alone. We got enough problems over here. Nano is just scumbag, eh? They're on the stock market robbing people and they don't even have a product. So it's from the World Nuclear News, so you know it's garbage. They're a lobbying group. They're nasty people, man. It's pretty rare for them to put their name on a story. Darlington small modular reactor, massive small modular reactor contract awarded to Candu Energy. How's Candu ever going to build something? The last reactor they built bankrupted the Light and Power in Ontario. Atkins Realist Company. Are they from Montreal or something? It must be, of course, but named her. Execution contract for the first of the 4 planned small modular reactor units. These are 240-foot buildings. These are not small modular reactor. They got nothing to do with a small modular reactor. The boiling water reactor X300 small modular reactor is massive, 24-story building. Yeah, but we're going to call it a small modular reactor because we can't create one. So you can, like, South Korea will build you one for the same price, $5 billion, a large one. 3 times the energy for the same price. The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission issued a construction license for the first. So when Trump said that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission had to, in the United States, had to just go along to get along with anything the nuclear industry wants to do, no more checks and balances, the Canadian nuclear industry thought Trump was talking to them, so now they're just rubber stamping everything comes across forever. They really are a vile bunch of creatures, aren't they, the Canadian Nuclear Safety? There is no Nuclear Safety Commission in Canada. There is nothing here. Or United States or anywhere else on the planet. So what do you get when you put a whole bunch of scumbags and gives them endless money and a whole bunch of scumbags and give them endless money? You get an extinction event eventually on our planet. That's what you get. You get enough scumbags to doom everybody forever. Hey, if that's your cup of tea, that's your cup of tea, but hallelujah. Look at this picture here. Hang on, I got to put that up there where I can find it later for a bit of fun. Because I got a really good memory. So next year when you have their anniversary, don't think for a second I'm not going to find that picture. Because I will. I guarantee you. Alrighty. If you made it this far, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, give us a thumbs up. If you disagree with me, give me a thumbs up. If you just to prove you don't like me, so give me a thumbs up. If you like me, give me a thumbs up. Prove you like me. I'm excited now. James got another song out. That makes my day. That's a good way to end the days you can get around here. It's Elemental Kiwis. Oh, a nice one. So this is on the theme that we got tonight for our poll. And James called in and confirmed it, so it's not in my head, like the nuclear industry is going to say. It's all in your head, Dana. No, he called in and told us. Should all nuclear fuel pools surrounded by firearms be closed to stop the genocide of supermarket? James is along that theme tonight. And he's got 10,200 subscribers. Man, he's climbing already. Elemental Kiwis. That's going to be fun. Let me get my headphones on. We'll see you tomorrow. If you make it this far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. It's your last chance to give us a thumbs up on the poll before I close it after this song. I'm going to adjust the volume on my end for you. Hopefully I get it right. Now remember, and I don't remind you folks that his volume is always really perfect, but because I'm turning the volume down and then I'm bringing it up because I'm on a different system. And so you might hear different in volumes, but if you go listen to his videos, you won't hear that stuff. He's really thoughtful about it. And I like to start the video, make sure that it's in HD, because there have been times when it wasn't. And we'll see you in the next show. There will be a show tomorrow night, because I got a whole bunch of headlines out there on my computer I never got done today. And I can't stand to leave anything for 24 hours, so we'll see you then. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night. Take care now. And get over here and give them a thumbs up, for goodness sakes.
I was 11 when Fukushima hit. So long ago, can't recall a bit. Heard the claims, forgot the rest. Now I'm a Gen Z Kiwi farmer, just downwind from the ongoing meltdowns, tending saplings like it's normal under the spring sunshine. They say the cores are mostly stable, the rest will take a few more centuries. My field was stripped, the soil approved, declared safe to return, and called it all a healing zone. Oh, elemental kiwis, sweet from the no-go zone. Oh, elemental kiwis, meets all accepted international standards. They say the stigma's mostly over, the fruit's intact, the trust delayed. I plant my kiwis where it's quiet and smile like something's been repaid. They say the soul